Hopefully you all had some time to mess around. I'm gonna show you a couple more things that are not mandatory, but they're can be useful. So number one, there's this thing called particles. That's baller. So particles are literally just a brush that creates a particle. So let me just add a brand new layer, completely blank. And let me select, let's do the veins particle so it's obvious. And you can kind of see here, you see what it's doing? So you can kind of see, you can do like a bunch of stuff. And basically wherever you paint, it does that particle effect. You can edit the particle effects. So let's make this go larger scale turbulence. And we can make the particle speed faster. And you can kind of see it's showing me how it's going to react. Yeah. So what I can also do is right now I'm just painting like that standard white material, which is fine. I can do two things. I can either go in here and say like, hey, I only want to paint height, and I want the height to go up. And whenever I do that, it'll just paint up. So that's fine. I can do that, or I can even instead of using these channels, I can do material mode, which is as simple as going. Let's just drag that material into here, and now I'm using that material. Okay, so if I go bleh, it should paint with that material. Why that's useful is if I want to do, let's say, particles, let's do a rain, and let's put in like a rust material or something. What's that look like? Yeah, it's pretty rusty. All right, so hopefully this works. Let's have a little bit of rain here. Oh, too much. So let's make the particle smaller. Roughness, that's the material stuff. Where's the stuff with particles? There we go. So life minimum, let's make it less. And let's let it inherit velocity. No, let's make the gravity really high so it streaks down. Let's get there lots. Oh no, no wind. No, that's not what I want. More wind? The other way, here. So you're kind of just like tweaking these until you get what you want, really. I want to spawn less of them, which should be spawn rate factor. Hopefully that should do it. Okay, let's see if that works. Particle life, yeah, that's fine. Let's just see. So I can just paint a little bit. Yeah, it just looks like dirty boat streaks. Let's tweak that a bit more. So it's very useful, but really it is a lot about like messing with these until you get it the way you want it to. Why are you streaking that way? Let's make gravity super strong. Which way? It's gravity. Is that right? It's wide up. Nope. Ugh, it's annoying. Okay, well, we kind of get this dirt streak look. You can also like mask this as always, add a black mask, and mask that off. So, oh no, what have we done? There are also a bunch of other different particles here, and they all kind of like do different things. If you hover over them, it'll show. Let's try the leaks one. Maybe the leaks will work better. Oh yeah, there we go. So leaks kind of should hopefully react only. So what you want to do is you'll kind of notice areas like here will get a lot more rust where stuff meets each other. And when we go to the museum next week, you'll be looking at that. You'll see the same thing happen. Areas with their contact, there's more occlusion, so it looks darker where they contact each other. There's like a little shadow where everything's contact each other, and there's usually more rust accumulated in them. Why? It's not a trick question. It's literally in real life. If I have like a little corner there, why would there be more rust and grime and dirt and stuff in there? What? More? Why is more air hitting that? It's just if I have something that I'm using or anything I'm not using or whatever, it's easier to clean the areas that are not there. Okay, and like it will be other parts will be more weathered. Stuff will accumulate in little corners and crevices, and we need to show that when we're making a model. Edges like this, sharp edges that are going to be used and smacked on stuff, are going to be more weathered because they're going to be more exposed and therefore knock off stuff, hit off stuff. They'll have little cracks and chips in them, and that's kind of a way to make things look more realistic. Because right now I have all the materials on, and that's fine, but it doesn't look very realistic. So let me just see if I can add a bit of. It's too much. I don't like it. So I'll also show you a separate method. I'll go back to those particle effects. They can be a bit weird. Sometimes I don't like them. So the other thing we can do is that ambient occlusion stuff I talked to you about, where it is a little bit of shadow. So let me zoom in on here. You can go to the texture set settings. You used to have to go to a different program, or you could bake it in Max. But you can go to, down the bottom, bake mesh maps, and Substance will bake maps for you. So I'm going to click on bake mesh maps. Am I recording? Yeah, I am. I just want to bake the ambient occlusion maps. And I'll bake a curvature map as well. Why not? So what an ambient occlusion map is, it'll look at the model. It'll detect what areas are like in close proximity to each other and add shadow there. And it'll come in as a map that you can add to it. What a curvature map will do is it'll look through the whole model. It'll find areas with a lot of curvature and kind of highlight those. Now, why that's useful is it can use that curvature map to then like delineate edges and add rust to them or wear to them or whatever. I'll show you now. So let me do ambient occlusion first. Let's make it, that's fine, max distance a little bit higher. You can just leave this by default, and I'm just gonna bake, and it automatically just bakes for me. Come on. See that shadow showing up? Did you see that? And is it a curvature? You see the way it's outlining all the curved edges? Can you see it at all? So it's giving me the curvature map at the end, but you can see like it's kind of gray, but everything along the edges here is being outlined. That's what the curvature map will do. It'll outline all those areas. So that's fine. Those two maps are set in there now. If I add the occlusion channel, it'll show up as well. So if I go to the ambient occlusion channel, and I can add a fill, and I will fill that with that image. Where did my image go? It usually gets saved somewhere in your textures. Ambient occlusion. Cool. Can barely see it. So let me put it in the color map so you can see what it looks like. Can you tell any difference? Yeah, there you go. Can you kind of see the difference? Like it's darker in those areas where it meets each other. Alright, so you probably don't want it to be that much. You can reduce the opacity here. So you can kind of like just tweak it to where it looks alright. But especially like areas like this wasn't there before. So if I turn this off, go to ambient occlusion, or get rid of that. It just doesn't quite look the same. It's not quite as good. If I turn off, there we go, turn off that map. So that's what it was default. You can see that. And when I add the ambient occlusion map, it looks like it's actually contacting. This looks a bit nicer. It seems like a small thing, but it does make quite a big difference. Like even here, it's very, very hard to notice, but if I take it away, it looks like a 3D model. Doesn't look quite realistic. So little things like that, ambient occlusion, do make quite a big of a difference. It just goes into the ambient occlusion here in texture set settings. I'm after putting it in the layers as well as an overlay, but it's probably a bit too much. Yeah, drop that down. Okay, so that was occlusion. I can also use the occlusion in an interesting way. This is a little more complicated, but I will show you anyway, because why not? So I'll go to materials again, and I'll look for a rust material. Rust. There we go. Let's put rust in there. So it's everywhere. I obviously don't want it everywhere. So I can use a bitmap mask, which is an image mask, and I'll use the ambient occlusion as my bitmap mask. And you'll see what happens. So, because you know the way black will block stuff, white will let stuff through. Because the ambient occlusion is black in the areas where it's shadowed, it's blocking those areas and it's letting stuff through in the other areas. I can do an invert. So it is at levels, I think, and you can invert in the add levels. Yeah, invert. So now it's using the areas where there's shadow and adding rust there. Does that kind of make sense? Because that image is black and white. That ambient occlusion mask was black and white, and when I inverted it, all the areas that are were in shadow that were black now become white and let the rust show through. And because I'm using levels, I can also adjust. Can you see it being changed, the intensity? Yeah. So you can adjust the intensity, adjust how it's affected, stuff like that. So that looks quite a lot more realistic than it did before. Now I have a problem, which is rust is showing up my rope. Rust is showing up here where I don't want it to show up. So how do I get rid of that? I can't use this mask. So what I can do is make a new folder, add this rust into that folder, and then add a mask into the folder. So I'll add a black mask, and I'll let whatever is inside that folder show up only on, say, the handle. Yeah, just the handle, maybe the bottom here as well. Don't want it to show up on the rope, and I don't want it to show up here. So cool, that rust is only showing up in these little areas here because it's blocked out from the others. Okay, Algae, kind of makes sense. You can, of course, also manually just paint it on, and there's a bunch of brushes here. So let me make another rust. Rust fine here. Oh, sorry. Cool. And add a black mask, and I can go to brushes. And there's a bunch of brushes, especially if you have a tablet. This works a lot better. And I usually use something like there's a dirt one here somewhere. Dots work? Maybe dots will work. Now I'll do dirt. There we go. So it looks like that. So you can kind of just paint it on in the areas that you want it as well, and you have a bit more control. So there's two ways. You can use that mask way, or you can use something like this where you just manually paint it on. And that's the one thing that you'll see a lot of blogs or like people talking about tell you. It's very easy to make things look perfect, absolutely perfect. What makes things look better is actually dust, wear, rust, grime, edge use. All that stuff makes it look more realistic and more interesting looking. So you can of course overdo it, so be careful about how much you put in, but a bit definitely helps. And And the other thing is, let's add the edge here. So let's go to materials. Let's make a really shiny material. Yeah. And I'll add black mass again. And this time I will paint here along the edges. My tablet isn't here today, so unfortunately. But you can kind of see stuff like that makes a big difference. It makes it look like it's worn and weathered there. And if you're about to do this, go and look at real life or other people's models. So let's see, knife 3D render. And you can kind of see all those little edges and details and stuff like that. You probably want to get something like that and have a look at them and how they did it, so you can attempt to copy yourself. All right. Any questions on that so far? We good? I think that's all I want to cover for today. Yeah, I think that's all I want to cover for today. You all know your house projects? I still do, yeah. I'll set up the assignment. They're going to be due for after reviewing. Next week, we're not having class here. On Tuesday, what did we say, 11 a.m.? Say again? Was it 11? Everyone okay with that? I'll post in Discord now. Wednesday? It was Tuesday, wasn't it? What? You tell me. I'm gonna stop